How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com, and this is the Alcohol Mastery Podcast, session 18. I'm outside today doing this podcast. I've been stuck in the office for a while, so I thought I'd get a chair out and sit out in the sun for a while, get a bit of vitamin D into myself. First question comes from YouTube, from David Llewellyn, and he says, over the last 3 months, I've been working on no longer drinking alcohol. I've fallen off the wagon twice and got back on. One of the hardest things I'm finding is when friends go up to me and they say, "Oh, do you fancy a pint at the weekend, mate?" I feel like I'm trapped in a corner of a boxing ring getting the crap knocked out of me. I don't want to say no, but it's such a hard thing to try and explain why I can't. So what's the best thing to say in this scenario? Well, at the end of the day, you've got to think about this from your perspective first and foremost, right? You can't think about other people, it just doesn't make any sense. When you get onto a plane, right, and the stewardess is there in the middle of the plane and they're telling you to go down one side, the other side, and the exit doors are here, and this is where, all this kind of stuff. And they say to you that if in the event the oxygen masks come down, put your own one on first before you deal with even your children, because if you're not in a capable state, then you can't help other people, right? Now, you can take this as being the same thing as if you're taking notice of what other people are saying to you, right? You can't help yourself. At the end of the day, it matters what friends you have, right? It matters that you've got friends and that you do your best to try and to keep those friends. But if those friends are causing you to do something that you don't want to do, then you've got to either bang it on the head for a while, get rid of them for a while, or get rid of them permanently, right? But at least, you've got to sort of start learning how to say no to people and say, well, look, this is my decision. Regardless of what you say, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it for my health, One of the biggest reasons that people are sort of afraid of sticking up for themselves and saying no to a drink is because they get this pressure on them that there's something wrong with them, right? And it's ingrained into us, right? It's brainwashed into us from an early age that everyone drinks, and if you're having a problem with drinking, then it's a problem that you've got. It's your problem, right? And it means that there's something wrong with you, right? There's something wrong with your at best your willpower, right? That you're drinking too much, and that's something that's a flaw in your own abilities to control yourself, right? At worst, it's a gene, right? It's a genetic defect in your system, right? So you've got to get over that one, right? When you stop putting this poison into your body, that's when you are normal. It's not normal to put this stuff into your body in the first place, right? It's just not normal, right? No matter how many times other people tell you that it's all right having a couple of drinks, people just don't have a couple of drinks. You wouldn't be saying this now if you could get away with having a couple of drinks when you went out with your mates at the weekend, and it was 1, 2, 3 drinks maybe, right? And that was it, then there would be no problem with that. Your body can handle that, but it's having a couple of drinks every day. It's having more than a couple of drinks every day. And that's the problem. For me, the problem with alcohol drinking is as soon as you put it into your mouth, right? It's rotten grape juice or rotten whatever it is that you're, rotten potatoes. If it's vodka, it's all the process of a fermentation thing. I got a question there the other day saying, what's the difference between why is marijuana legal? I think it's actually on here. I'll deal with that in a minute then. So look, if you're trapped if you feel like you're trapped in a corner and people are putting you into that corner, then either you have to stand up for yourself and go, look, I'm not doing this, or you have to put yourself into a position where you're not trapped in a corner, which is either not going there, finding different things to do. I mean, one of the problems when you stop drinking first is that your mind is still revolving around the drinker's mentality, right? Like I say, I'm not talking about this from the perspective of you've got something wrong with your brain or anything like that. I'm just saying that this is the way you do things. This is the habit, right? And the habitual behavior, you've got to take that apart. You've got to divide it up, and you've got to separate the things that no longer are part of your life, right? So, going to the pub for me, and sitting there drinking was no longer a part of my life. I went to the pub and I used to watch the Arsenal matches, or I went to a pub if I was eating, but that was it. And as soon as that was finished, that other thing, eating the food, watching the Arsenal match, then I left, and there was no hanging around the pub. I'd be the last one out of the pub if I was drinking, and so I had to change all that about myself. But first and foremost, it was just you have to make this mental shift of that there are many, many, many other things to do with your life, right? Socially, to socialize with people rather than going out to the pub. So, just think about that one. This one's from Choice 12 ounce. Choice 12 Osborne. Sorry, it looks like a 12 ounce. I was hoping someone could answer this question. I'm a beer drinker, and I've been drinking any time that I'm not working for the best part of 10 years. They found through an ultrasound by accident that I have a fatty liver. They didn't tell me if it was non-alcoholic or what. It's very depressing because I feel I'm at a point where if I quit completely, which I've slowed down a lot, can my liver be refreshed or get better? Basically, all I have a problem with is the beer belly, and the rest of my body is slim. Once in a while I feel pressure on the right side. I have a tiny rash on my skin. Is anybody out there quit drinking and starting to eat better foods to find out if there is to find out they did no good, or is there still hope? I'm not an old guy, middle-aged, 46 years of age. I do not drink the hard stuff. I never thought the beer would affect my liver like that. Anybody got any helpful answers, and please let me know. Well, for a start, right, the beer is the alcohol. Whether you're drinking the hard stuff, as people say, right, the hard stuff, whether you're drinking stuff that's 40% proof or you're drinking stuff that's 6% proof like beer, right, or 5% proof, it's still alcohol. You're getting less into your system, but it's still alcohol, and your body can only deal with a certain amount of alcohol at a time, right? So your liver can deal with 1 unit of alcohol per hour, and anything else that's in your system is just floating around your system. As far as your liver is concerned, as I say, I'm not a doctor, so you need to get this checked out, but fatty liver syndrome is one of the things that can be reversed, right? Any fatty liver syndrome, it's when you get to the next stage, which is or you get to 2 stages. You go to hepatitis first, and then you go to cirrhosis of the liver. Once you get to cirrhosis, that's irreversible at the moment. Maybe in the future they'll have something that can sort that one out, but as far as anything else is concerned now, yeah, it's just it's irreversible. So fatty liver syndrome can be helped first and foremost by you stopping drinking. And as I say, regardless of what you think is the hard stuff or the soft stuff, it's still alcohol, it's still a poison that's going into your body. That kind of thing, what you're getting, the pain in your right side and itchy skin and all that kind of stuff, that's when your body is not dealing with it. When your body deals with the alcohol, when your liver deals with the alcohol, it switches off everything else, because the liver has so many different functions in your body, right? So many essential functions in your body. It's not only the filtration system that filters your blood you're living in a world here where I was reading a piece earlier on about China and some of the cities in China, Beijing and places like that. that, you know, you've seen pictures on the TV of these guys going around with masks over their faces, and just the smog there is unbelievable, you know. People are dying from pollution every day over there, you know. And a lot of that stuff, that pollution, you know, there's no walls that are surrounding China that's going to stop that stuff from coming out. And a lot of their pollution is coming over to the West, you know. A lot of the pollution that you get in cities, people live in the countryside and they think, well, you know, I'm not getting that pollution. So I don't know what my point was there. So your liver has to deal with the pollution that's coming out of the air. Your liver has to deal with the pollution that's coming from your food. Any of the, you know, if you're not eating organic foods, you've got fertilizers and all that kind of stuff that's coming into your body through that. Your liver has to deal with the pollution that comes in from your fingers, right? The stuff that you touch, you know, every day, you know. So there's a lot of different areas that and that's just one job that your liver does. So what I'm saying is, when your body is dealing with alcohol in your system, when your liver is dealing with that, it cannot deal with anything else. This is a priority for your system, right? So, you know, when the alcohol is floating through your system, plus you've got all these other toxins that are not being dealt with floating through your system, plus you've got all these other bodily functions that are, at best, they're being reduced because your body is dealing with alcohol. Then, you know, you're talking about, you know, there's a lot of shit going around your body, and your body's going to start to suffer, you know. But my advice would be to switch to a whole foods, plant-based diet as much as you can. If you're going to eat meat, try and eat stuff with as less fat as possible, you know. I mean, the fat that you eat is the fat that you wear, and that's including your liver. If you're eating stuff from nature, right, as close to it's possible, as close to what you get off the tree, you know, as close to the stuff you get out of the ground, you know, eat as much of that as you can, and that will, you're feeding your body the right nutrients that you need, right? You're giving your body less shit to deal with on the inside, right? And the biggest thing is to stop the alcohol. I mean, that's one of the biggest poisons that we put into our bodies, all in the form, or all in the name of entertainment, right? So, next one is from the website, and this one comes from Jerome, and he said, "I've been drinking since I was 13, and I'm 60 now. It never seemed to affect my ability to work or hurt my marriage. However, the last 2 years I began drinking from morning until night. Things got really bad. I started taking other drugs, cocaine, even heroin sometimes. I've quit all that, and then just alcohol 12 days ago. I can't sleep most nights, feel bad most days, walking around in the fog. Hard to get motivated to do anything. I find myself like now not wanting to drink just to feel. I found myself like now wanting to drink just to feel better. Will one drink stop the feeling? I'm not going back to drinking. Just wanted to know what you think. I'm not going to try a drink if it's going to get me started again. I hope you can help. I'm going to watch more of your videos and stay strong." Well, I think what you're saying there is, you know, will one drink get you over the hump? And it probably will, you know. You know, if you're having problems sleeping and stuff like that, then that one drink, you know, psychologically it's going to help you get over the edge. But what's the fucking point in doing that, you know? You've done 12 days. This is all a process. You know, it's nothing to do with, you're going back to the same thing, right? You know, I drank for over 30 years. And slowly but surely, over those 30 years, I gradually started using alcohol to solve different issues in my life, right? Whether it was relaxation or being shy when I was young, being shy when I was older. You know, you don't get out of that. You still remain in that sort of a system. And really it's a coping mechanism that we learn. It's a coping mechanism that just wastes time, because while you're doing this, you just can't do anything else, you know. I mean, there's natural coping mechanisms that we're supposed to learn throughout life, right? That you're supposed to learn when you're a kid, when you're growing up, and you're going from, you know, one school to the next, and you learn how to cope with that. You learn how to cope with getting new friends. You learn how to cope, and you know, on and on and on. When you go to a new job, when you meet a girl, when you get married, and all this kind of stuff, you learn things as you go on, right? But there comes a certain time in your life when you stop doing this, right? And you know, we start to look at things from the instant gratification point of view, and we start to see ourselves not as using our minds and using our skills in order to face life and cope with life and deal with life, get your victories over life, you know, challenge yourself. You start to do this with the instant gratification of alcohol or other drugs. You know, it's the same thing no matter what you're doing. It's the same thing. I mean, for me, it's the same thing with coffee. Getting up in the morning, right? It's you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? You're doing stuff in the nighttime which is making you tired, and then you're tired in the morning, so you're drinking coffee to get you going, and then once the coffee wears off, you're feeling tired again, and you know, it's just like a vicious circle, you know. People don't eat well. They take all sorts of drugs to try and combat the problems, but none of these things combat the actual problem, right? All they do is they hide the problem, they mask it, you know. It's like putting it's like having a crack in your wall, right? If you've got a crack in one of your walls, it's like getting some plaster and plastering over the thing. You know, it doesn't do anything for the crack in the wall, you know. That could be a structural crack, and it could, you know, mean that your wall's gonna fucking fall down. So just getting plaster over it and plastering over it is not doing anything for you, you know what I mean? So, and there's many different areas of our lives that we do these kind of things in. So, you know, in those early days, you are going to have discomfort, right? And the more you drank beforehand, the more you relied on alcohol for different things, the more you're going to have discomfort, right? The more discomfort you're going to feel. And the more you have to push yourself through that and get through it. And taking that one drink will help you in the moment, right? It's going to help you in the moment. It's going to help to calm you down or whatever it is. But in the long term, you're screwing yourself, you know, because, you know, once you take that drink, you're giving into that temptation, and, you know, this is going to happen over and over and over again. As soon as you feel like you can't handle things, you'll go back to the alcohol. And my advice is just to push through it. You know, if you can't sleep, so fucking what? You know, so what? You know, you're better off not sleeping for a few days right now, and putting up with that and getting yourself healthier and healthier and healthier, and then later on you get the best sleeps that you ever had, right? And then you start to deal with life bit by bit by bit, slowly but surely. Because if you don't do this, right, and you carry on doing what you're doing, right, taking that one drink when it seems like things are getting on top of you, right, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences later on. And I'm telling you now, the consequences later on of you carrying on drinking are going to be far worse than the discomfort that you're feeling now. So put up with the discomfort, you know, push yourself through. Put your big boy's pants on. That's what a guy once told me to do years ago. Put your big boy's pants on. You've got to stop acting like a kid, you know. And it's hard sometimes to admit that to yourself, that's what you're doing, you know. But that's what it is, you know. Anytime we try and we're not willing to put up with the discomfort that we know is going to get us to another level in our lives, right? And we know is going to make us better in our lives. We're acting like children. So I hope you got something out of that. The next one is another one from the website, from Rich. He says, "Hi Kev, I'm 6 months alcohol free and don't even consider drinking. The thoughts of the hangover or being drunk repulse me. One thing is, I'm actually disgusted with my past drinking and smoking. Do you harbour these feelings, and how do you deal with them? Thanks." Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this so many times, and most of my own personal regrets, I'll put it like that, I don't tend to look at things with disgust. I mean, you know, what's past is past. You can't change anything. there's a guy called Wayne Dyer, and he talks about this thing called shoulda, woulda, coulda. And that's when somebody says to you, you should have done this, or you could have done this, or if I were you, I would have done this, right? Well, that's just impossible. Anyone that tells you that you should have done something differently is talking out of their arse, right? Because there's no way you can do that, right? There's only you can do from now on, right? You can't should have done something in the past. So there is absolutely no point in looking back towards your past with regret or disgust or any of those things, because it doesn't do you any good. And that's what you have to keep in your mind going forward all the time is this doing me good? Is this thinking doing me good? Is what I'm putting into my mouth doing me good? Is sitting around all the time on a chair and not getting any exercise doing me good, right? Is getting this exercise doing me good, right? All this kind of thing, you should be all the time thinking, is this doing me good or is it doing me harm? You can look back at your past and think to yourself, I used to do that, and really, this is where the mistake was. And once you isolate the mistake, then you can sort of say to yourself, well, I'm not going to do that again, right? That's a good way of doing it, right? But there's no point in looking back and saying, this is what I used to do. You know what I mean? Beating yourself up for shit that's happened in your past that you've got no control over. Other people will do that to you, for you enough. Keep reminding you of your old mistakes. But don't do it to yourself. There's no point. What you can do for yourself now, as you say, you're 6 months alcohol free. Big congratulations to you. What you can do now is say to yourself, in the last 6 months, this is what I've done. What have you done in those last 6 months that, is worth that, doing that to yourself? Huh? Because that's what you need to do all the time. As soon as you start getting into moany stuff about looking back into your past, that's when people start getting, that's when the overwhelm starts to go from here up to here and up to here and up to here, and then people start to think, I can't deal with this, I've got to shut my mind off. So, for me, it's all about being kind to yourself first, right? Being kind to yourself by being positive about your own self, about being positive about where you are now, and where you want to go. Intention is one of the best things that you can sort of have, If you've got a good intention about life, then that's going to take you a lot further than if you look back on your past. So next one, I'm going to leave that one to the end actually, because it's not a question. Next one is YouTube, John Peasy, and he says, how long did it take you to get physically addicted? Because I drink on occasion and never really had an issue with it. Watching these videos makes me worry I'm going to go out one night and wake up hooked on alcohol, and the next day dying in bed, begging in the streets for nips and to get through the day. It just doesn't happen like that, There's no one thing that's going to turn you over the edge. I mean, for me, it's starting out drinking, which is as Alan Carr calls it, the slippery slope, where you get onto this thing, and once you get into it, it's very difficult to get out. And it's easy to get onto it on our planet because so many other people are doing it, because so many other people are encouraging you to do it. If you're a parent, there's going to be so many other people, both big and small, right? When I'm talking about big, I'm talking from a government level, right? Teachers, people with lots and lots of money, down to small people. I'm not talking about people in terms of who people are, but from the small individual influences, friends and family and that kind of stuff. These are all people that are going to encourage you to drink, encourage your children to drink. So that for me is the biggest poison of all, because once we get to a stage where we can drink legally, we've probably already been drinking for a number of years, and it's inbuilt into us that this is a good thing to do. And it's only later on when you start looking at, your life is finite, right? You've only got so many days in your life. You've got so many years. I worked out once, and it was 27,000 and odd days for an average lifestyle, right? An average lifespan. I think that's 70 odd years. 27,000 days. And when you start drinking first, let's say you don't touch a drop before you're 18, right? And you start drinking at 18. 10 years goes by pretty quickly, right? That's 3,000. It's 30. What is it now again? 10 years is 3,000. Yeah, 3,650 days. My mind is gone today. I don't know why that is. 3,650 days. That's gone from so you're 28, and then you've got another. Say you do it for another 10 years. So you're drinking 20 years, 7,000 and odd days. And then you start to think to yourself one day about your past, and you start to think, where's all the time gone? And if you're anything like me, you break down the time into, this is what you're doing, this is what I've been doing. And if you've got alcohol issues, which you will have if you've been drinking for 20 years, if you're drinking any amounts for 20 years, you're going to have alcohol problems. And then you'll start to see things then from a 20-year perspective, that you've been drinking for 20 years, and you'll see all over that time, all the individual. I used to look back at my life when I stopped, I was, for the longest amount of time, I was going through life preaching to myself and telling myself I didn't have a problem. There's no problem with me with alcohol at all, right? Then I started having difficulties with life and stuff, and drinking too much, and the alcohol was getting me into trouble. When you're young, your body deals with the alcohol very, very quickly, and you don't notice the damage that's happening to your body, because your system is wired up to keep you moving forward. It's only when you get older and your body starts to get more sensitive in general, not just sensitive to alcohol, that you start to feel these things. The hangover lasts longer, the fog in your brain lasts longer, and all these things start to take effect. But I used to think to myself, I need to cut down. I don't need to stop. It's not something that, I identify myself as a drinker, so the alcohol's not a problem because everyone does it. What's the problem is me, and I'm drinking too much. So all I have to do is cut down on the alcohol and everything will be good. But that never lasted, So, your question is, right, are you going to all of a sudden turn into a raving alcoholic overnight, begging on the streets and all that kind of stuff? It just doesn't work like that, Like I say, I wish I'd never started, but I did. I drank for over 30 years. That's it. Can't do anything about that. Can't change it. All I can do is swear to God, swear to myself that I'm never going to drink again, That's all I can do. Anyway, what have we got here? Another one from YouTube, Miss Milano. Does anyone get triggered by good events? Sometimes when everything is going great, even sobriety, I want to celebrate with booze. I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and one of the other, somebody gave a comment and that they were triggered by something, but it triggered them not to drink, right? And really, when you're talking about being triggered, celebrations is one of the big things that triggers us. This is one of the things that is hammered into us day in and day out from the alcohol companies, from our families and friends, from everyone around us. It's Friday night comes and we're out to party. Saturday night, same thing. Sunday night, same shit, different day. Going on holidays, drinking. So we associate with good times in general. And once you get that association with good times, even when you're having bad times, then you start to think, oh yeah, but the alcohol and good times, so if I drink alcohol now, maybe I'll bring the good times back, right? Because I'm drinking alcohol. I'm feeling depressed, but if I drink alcohol now, maybe I'll get the good times, I get the good feeling that I had and it's all Skinner's box, the dog, Pavlov's dog. It's conditioning. One thing leads to another, and this goes on in your brain. So, yeah, I mean, it's. I celebrate now without booze. Don't need booze. I mean, the times that you celebrate are worth celebrating because of the event that's happened, right? When somebody gets married, it's a great thing, depending on your perspective, but it's a great day of celebration. I mean, most of the time when somebody gets married these days, it's a lavish occasion, right? With food, with music, and everyone's getting dressed up, and everyone's in buoyant mood. You don't need that. I mean, you look at what the alcohol does to people, and look at what fools people make out of themselves because they've been drinking alcohol. Do you know what I mean? We went to my sister's wedding last year, and there was a guy there from England. One of the best men. There was two best men at the wedding, and this guy was that drunk. He was going around groping women. He was. At one stage, he went outside the hotel that we were staying in, and he fell asleep in the middle of the road. Not the main road, thank God, but this road coming up to outside the hotel. And this guy came in to the groom and said, "Look, one of your friends outside is asleep on the road, and there's taxis trying to come up and down. So you have to go out and get him." And that's an exaggerated example, right? But when you look at people with alcohol in them, it doesn't do anything for the person, The first drink might relax them, but it's generally what we do anyway, You start to relax as you get into this, when you walk into a room full of people, you're naturally feeling a little bit tense. Everyone is, The people who are drinking or the people who are not drinking. There's people that cannot stand this, and they cannot stand it that much that they will often come to a place. I used to do the same thing myself. I wouldn't go out for a night out, whether it was for a meal out in a restaurant or going to a party or a wedding even, right, without having a couple of drinks in me first, just to relax me and to feel like I was relaxed walking into the place. But people don't realize that it's not just them that feels that, it's everybody. Everybody feels, it's like they walk into a place and go, it's just this natural tenseness that they feel, and it takes a while before you become accustomed to being around a lot of other people. Some people that other people that you don't know. It's like it takes you less time to become accustomed to people that you know, but even so, you still have that tenseness, and a lot more time with strangers. So this is an actual progression, Having fun is a natural thing to do. Going out and having a meal with people, I mean, for me, is one of the best times. I love that, going out and sitting around the table with my family or my friends and just having fun and laughing and joking and, tasting the food. Doesn't need to have alcohol. I watch other people drinking and it does nothing for them, I drank for so many years under those circumstances, and I thought it gave me what I needed, and it just made me look like a fucking fool, right? Because I drank too much, and because, I thought I was so fucking funny. I thought everything I said was so funny, But it wasn't. It was foolish. So, yeah, I mean, it's celebrating with booze. You don't need it. Celebrate because you want to celebrate. You celebrate because the time calls for a celebration. We're just programmed and brainwashed into believing that you need to have a drink in order to celebrate. You don't, pure bullshit. Another one from YouTube. Troy says, just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on the belief or theory that some people have genetics and that means they don't get hangovers? I don't get it or believe it, to be honest. Of course, everybody feels different due to many various circumstances, but it sounds pretty dodgy to me. How can a human body take that damage and feel nothing? I've never heard the same thing with other drugs and poisons. I don't believe it. Thanks for all you've done. So yeah, I mean, I don't believe that either. My son used to say to me, it's a bravado thing when you're young. You say, I could drink, and I don't get a hangover, but you're not going to tell anyone, It's like with people who are drinking. People who drink a lot never really. They're kind of. There's two different levels. There's you're proud of what you drink, and you go, I can drink 25 pints, no problem. That's what I used to say. I've done it a few times. Right, started early, finished very late. Drank about 25. I think my most was about 30 pints. What the fuck? But then you've got the other side, and you've got people who will drink, but they're ashamed of how much they drink, and they will sort of underestimate. They'll tell little white lies. I've also been in that position. It depends on the situation that you're in, and the person that you're in. If I'm out with my mates, drinking years ago, no problem. Yeah, how many pints have you had? Oh, 10. No problem. If I'm in with my partner drinking, it's like, how many glasses of wine have you had? Oh, just a couple. So it all depends on. But then you're always trying to hide the negative effects, even from yourself. I think people do that. So I'm not really sure. I don't believe in the genetic stuff. I think that if anything, people have got a genetic propensity to be more, to have habits sink in more, But I think it's more to do with nurture rather than nature, right? So people are brought up in a certain way. They have so many different influences that are influencing you from day one, right? You've got all these influences coming in, and they're going to make one person very different from another person. And, I think that's where it boils down to, I think this is how, for most people, it's how they cope with life, it's how they do life. So another one from YouTube, from Storm Williams. How the hell is alcohol legal while marijuana isn't? That's what I was talking about earlier. And I was listening to a guy, Noam Chomsky, and he's like, he was talking about marijuana versus cigarettes, and it's the same sort of an argument. And he was saying the reason why cigarettes are illegal while marijuana is illegal is because marijuana is a weed, right? I could grow marijuana just in the ground like that, That's not a marijuana plant, by the way. I don't know what that is. It's a weed, but it's always marijuana, right? And anyone can grow it. It will grow anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not in some of the northern countries, but if I planted marijuana down here, it will grow like fuck. If I gave it a bit of water, what's that? So it will grow very easy. So it has to be made illegal, right? Because anybody can grow it. Cigarettes, right, and alcohol, same thing, right? They're part of an industrial process, right? You've got to do some shit to cigarettes to get them from being the leaf on the tree, being the leaf on the plant, into having them in that form that they come in a cigarette. It's a lot easier if you don't refine them as much, but to get them to a refined state that's in a cigarette package. I read somewhere that in some cases there's over 1,000 different chemicals in cigarettes, and I'm sure that there's the same amount, a lot of different chemicals in alcohol. So, but it's the same process, when you're looking at alcohol, it's got to go through a refining process. It's got to go through an industrial process in order to get, you can make it on your own, but it's not the same sort of stuff, Anyone who's tasted homebrew and put it next to shop bought beer, they notice the difference in the refining. It's like oil comes out of the ground, and it's crude oil, and they call it crude for a reason. It's basically as it comes up, and then it goes through various refining processes, and you get diesel and you get petrol, gas, but there's, I'm sure there's a lot of different other products that they get out of it the more they refine it, but that's basically it. One can be grown out of the ground, and one has got a process. Not everyone can do it, so it's like with food, the same thing with food. If with whole foods, stuff that you come out of You know, when you take an orange that comes off a tree, I mean, if I pull that orange off a tree, right, there's a middleman, right, from between me and the shop, right? The guy who comes, maybe he picks the oranges off the tree and he puts them into a box, and he takes that box to the fruit wholesalers, and they buy the box of oranges off him, and then the wholesalers sell them to the shop, and that's it. You know, so there's no real money to be made out of it. You know, the wholesaler buys them off the farmer for a certain amount, then he adds some money on to sell them to the shop, and then they add some money on to sell them to you. But apart from that, you know, what's the profit? But when they can take that orange and cut it up and squeeze it, then they've put a little bit more into the process, right? So now they've given you this juice that has got in a carton. You don't have to squeeze it yourself. It'll stay in your fridge for a few days, and there's another sort of step in the process, you know, and that's just one step. If you take a lot of the packaged foods that you find on the shelves, these go through so many different processes, you know, and they've put so many different ingredients in them to make them taste good to the human mouth, right? Although a lot of people would argue with that. And, you know, because they've processed them all along, they can add a lot more money onto them, you know, than would have started out with. So, you know, it's the same thing here with that. Let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to do this one as well. This is not a comment, it's just a question. Oh, it's not a question, it's just a comment. I liked it. It's from Lisa, and she said, I did the hospital thing for 8 months. It was addiction to food in the form of an eating disorder, but the exact same thinking as with alcohol, right? The addiction went on to wine, beer, lies and dysfunctional thinking. I had been to OA, which is the equivalent of AA, and did the 12-step program, which and was told to cut out all forms of wheat, sugar and alcohol. Yeah, it worked for a few months until everything exploded, and the tight jacket, straight jacket, no longer worked. My psychiatrist was an eating disorder specialist in his field, said 12-step programmers put patients into a false sense of safety, in a cage, so to speak. He said it was the same as putting us people into a tight jacket, a straight jacket, rather than dealing with the cause. I was fixed with food and eating coming out of that hospital, but the gremlin would always be there. My consultant psychiatrist told me it was, but it came up and bit me with alcohol instead of food eventually. Until recently, and for the first time, I realized enough is enough after 25 years. What a waste of time, I realized. I missed so much. I'm not going to be to let alcohol become the common denominator of my problem any longer. Thanks, Kevin. You've inspired me onwards and bloody upwards all the way. We deserve happiness at last. Cheers, Lisa. Well, you know, it's basically, you know, you've got to deal with the problem, right? It's the same as I was talking about earlier on with the pharmaceuticals. You know, if you take a pharmaceutical, most pharmaceuticals now will not deal with they won't cure anything, they will just cover up the cracks, right? They'll deal with the symptoms of the problem rather than the problem. That's what we're doing all the time when we're either emotionally eating, right? It's the same thing. When you're drinking, when you're taking drugs, you're dealing with the symptoms of a problem, right? You're drinking to relax when you're feeling tense, when you should be really looking at why you're tensed in the first place, right? You're dealing with, you're drinking with because you've got problems in your life, you want to forget about your problems or whatever it is, and it always is this, you know, alcohol is never going to cure anything in your life. All alcohol is going to do is paper over the cracks, and then it's going to leave you with a bad smell the next day. You know, I keep going back to my Marine friend in the States who was saying that alcohol was his kryptonite, and that's really what we're doing to ourselves. Is every time you take a drink, you're taking one step forwards and going 2 steps backwards, and you're putting on your own straitjacket, you know, bit by bit by bit. If you've ever seen A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, read the book, then you'll know Marley's ghost at the beginning appears, and he's got a long chain, and it's constructed of these chains, but it's also got cash boxes on it and all different things that he's constructed in his life based around money. And each chain was a dodgy decision that he'd made or something that he'd done in his life. And that's really what we're doing, you know. Every drink you take adds to this self-made prison that we're making for ourselves, that we're creating for ourselves. Now, as I say, it's all to do with habit, right? It's habit. And the habit that you can build is the habit that you can destroy, right? But just the same as any habit that you construct is constructed brick by brick, right? Bit by bit over the years. And it's exactly the same way, the opposite way around. You deconstruct the habit bit by bit. You can speed up the whole process by teaching yourself different skills, right? By chasing after something in your future, right? By instilling yourself with good habits, which completely, they speed up the habit, the process of deconstructing, but they also, you know, the more positivity you can have about you, the more that's going to speed things up. So I just thought that was a great comment. And the final one for today was from Ryan Justice, and he says, 70 days and not really counting. Enjoying life without alcohol and landed the best job I've had in 10 years, moving onwards and upwards. Says it all. You know, this is, for me, the best thing about quitting drinking alcohol, apart from, you know, I did this myself to be a good role model to my son, right? To be a good father. I did it because I was feeling crap about myself. I was getting a lot of health problems. I was waking up in the middle of the night thinking I was going to have a heart attack. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. But the thing that I've noticed over the last 5 years since I stopped, right, was the amount of things that I've done in my life, both in my personal life and in my business life, right? The things that I've done, that the way my mind thinks now is completely different, because I don't have that straitjacket holding me back. You know, for me, if you imagine when you're trying to move away from alcohol and you're trying to quit drinking alcohol, for a while you've got this like a huge elastic band around your waist, right? And it stretches back towards the habit, and it's being anchored by the habit, right? And you're struggling forwards and you're moving forwards, and the more you give in to thinking about the drinking, the more you let yourself focus on any positivity about alcohol at all, or the alcohol behavior, right? And you look at other people and think, I'm a bit jealous of them, you know. The more you do that, the more this thing is holding you back and holding you back. And you stop doing that, right? You snap the elastic band once you are completely focused on where you're going, and you have that in your sights, and you're thinking to yourself, I love my life now where I'm heading, and I hate that what I did before, right? What I did before was such a waste of time, and I'm never going back to it, right? That's when you get a Stanley knife and you cut both sides of that. The elastic band goes back, and you feel that freedom for yourself, you know, that if you've ever been to a gym and you've done weights, right, and you're lifting weights and you're struggling to go for that last one, right, and you put those weights down, and then you'll find your arms just go like this. That's exactly the way you feel once you get into that groove where you start to think to yourself, alcohol is never coming back into my life, you know. And I feel positive about that, and I don't feel angry or envious or jealous of anyone that's drinking. I feel sorry for them, right? I don't wish that life on my worst enemy, especially myself, right? So I'm going to end it there. I thought that was just a positive note. So, you know, congratulations on getting that job. But that's what's out there for you, you know. Once you start taking one step forward, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and you're not taking 2 steps back because you're getting pissed every night, you know. So I'll leave it there. I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Take very good care of yourself. Keep the alcohol out of your mouth. Onwards and upwards. Take care. Bye bye now.